Hello and welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic. So having a look at Friday's crossword in the Times, and I'm just gonna play through my solve as it happened and mention a few of the clues as we go. There was about 15 seconds of faffing around setting up the recording, so I might deduct that from my time at the end. 2 down regularly always tells you that you're looking for alternate letters in an answer. Now 4 down, I had a bit of a guess. Somewhat embarrassing 16 looked to me like we needed a string of 5 letters from embarrassing, and I could see Aris from that. So it looked like the only likely 5-letter answer. Filled it in, went to 16 down to see if an Aris is a type of 16 down. And the only thing I know an Aris is a tapestry. I think Polonius gets killed behind an Aris in Shakespeare's Hamlet. So 16 down had enough in it to suggest that it was tapestry made up of tapes and try, and in it went. Had to work on 3 down here. Gold was AU, mob was in the middle of a fabric toile. And I'd realised by this point that this was going to be a fairly fast crossword. I was having a look at 5 across, but I didn't actually read it because I was still thinking about 7 down here, when I'd worked out that men, OR, and feature trait went into pure to make portraiture. When I finally did look at 5 across with the H and P in place, church suggested chapel, and that was quickly proved. 8 down, again you're seeing 3-4 and rest. It does look like lie down with the letters in the grid. I was hoping to whip through the acrosses, but struggled a bit on both 11 and then 13, which I tried. 13 is very straightforward. I don't know why it took me several moments to see that tactic initially used by Citigroup was T from tactic and Rio. I think I was looking for initially used to give a U and the whole thing to be a tactic, like a ruse or something. Now, it really did take quite a while, but in it goes. 15, the only word I know that fits, well, sherbet, I suppose, but I did think of sackbut, which is an old musical instrument. 18, even though it ends in L and P, Gucci to start with was screaming a G to begin with, and I eventually thought of the slightly old-fashioned gym slip, probably very well defined as a tunic, but wasn't something I knew straight away. Had a look, couldn't really make anything out of spineless creature at 19 across, Flanders clubs. The bet at 12 down, I should have known that, but I couldn't see it straight away. 18 down had a very clear anagram indicator in terribly, and that helped with identifying Gunther. 27 across, again a very clear definition, not often, so there was just a case then of proving why that was rarely. You take the outside letters of Arab and add to a word meaning bank. Again, here's a phrase now with the in it clearly. It just takes reading the clue to have a go at hit the right note there. Long distance runner, well, it's worth knowing that that might be a river. And that's not something obvious, but again, you might have seen it in a crossword clue before, and it's fairly straightforward. Now, I wasn't not remembering exactly, oh yes, once and he's anagrammed around cut for axe, and that gives you escutcheon, again, a very clear and straightforward definition. And when the definitions are this straightforward, there's not really any reason for much delay. You know, once you've got a few letters in the grid, the definitions will really point you to the right answer. And then it's just a matter of whether you want to and whether you can work out the wordplay to prove it. But in many cases, you don't need to prove it. Ode is Isurian, maybe the only slight, well, sackbut's old, obviously, but Isurian's a slightly unusual word for hungry. Not everybody would know that, but I think experienced crossword solvers will have come across it once or twice. And now the spineless creature and the Flanders clubs, there was a literary reference there to Mole Flanders. Is that by Stern? Might be embarrassing myself there. And Mole and C for clubs went around US and gave mollusk. And then the last two, the only things that would really fit together, they were both justified by the clues, Intercom and Headmaster, and a pretty quick time. Again, there's my battery warning, but if you take off the 15 seconds that I was faffing around at the start, just sizing the window and so on, that's a time slightly under 5 minutes, which is pretty quick, certainly. There's not many puzzles one can do much quicker than that normally. So again, once the definitions are straightforward, there don't have to be many obstructions to getting the puzzle done fairly quickly. And I think this demonstrates that. It's a useful guide to how quickly one can go, I think. And I'm not just doing it off the definitions. In almost every case, I have checked the wordplay, but at speed. And I don't know how many seconds you could take if you take off that time if you really wanted to gamble and not check wordplay at all. But my estimate of how often it would affect an answer is 1 in every 50 or so, which is pretty rare, and you could kind of take a chance with it because you'd have to have worked a few wordplays out to get going. I wouldn't do it in a championship at the moment, but certainly it would be a tactic someone could use against me. But you'd be brave, I think, to go certainly with more than one whole puzzle where you just worked on the definitions. But if you can, it would be much quicker. So a 5-minute puzzle, unusual on a Friday to see an easy one, but I do think that was, and I think the times that come out later today from some of the top solvers will reflect that. There may be one or two that beat me, and John McCabe in particular has been going incredibly fast lately, and has touch typing skills as well, which I don't really, so he might set something incredible on this in my view. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it, and hope to see you again on Cracking the Cryptic.